Hello, I'm Svitek, 360 Creative Coach, and welcome to my vlog, where it's both my mission and my pleasure to highlight my creative journey in hopes of inspiring you, as well as giving you specific takeaway, all that way your journey can be at least a little bit easier. Now, before I fully dive into what's been going on, I would like to shout out two of my latest patrons on my Patreon, James Law Jr. and Ken Knapsack. If you're wondering what this is, well, I've launched my Patreon page at patreon.com/PhilSvitek, and it's a way for you and others to connect with me on a more direct level. That way I can go beyond just these episodes that I put out and really help you out in a hopefully more meaningful way. And there's various tiers of support and things like that, and you get various rewards based on your level of contribution. And the idea is, as I said, for us to really connect on a deeper level so that way I can help you. Because that's, after all, what I aim to do, whether through this version of it or through the Patreon. So thank you to James and Ken, and thank you to you for considering joining. Now let's get into this. The bulk in terms of the creative work that I was doing last week revolved around my second feature film, the one that we had just filmed in Colombia. And, it was Thanksgiving, and so a lot of what I was doing was by myself, right? In the sense of I was labeling clips and syncing clips. For me, before I start editing anything, I really want to make sure that it's organized so that way when I do edit it, I can work at the speed of thought or as close to it as possible, right? And in order to do that, I got to know where things are. I got to have things ready to go and queued up. So the way that happens is, through organization. And so, nowadays digital cameras and audio recorders are amazing, but of course they come back and it's all just random jumbled numbers like clip name AO7CD4383, blah, 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 right? And so, for me, the way I start to label it is just I go through everything and I make sure that I know what the clip is. I rename it according to the scene number of the script, the camera angle, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all that, and the take number. And then I keep the last, the original clip name as at the base of it, meaning at the end, so that way I can always reference it in terms of any backups that I've made. I can, be like, oh, based on the original clip name, I can find it, right, if I need to. I don't know, I just like to keep that. So, I go through that for the audio and the video, and, it's based, we shot a lot of footage, and so it was a lot to organize, especially with other obligations, right, which I'll talk about. But, that was phase one. So now phase two is syncing. And so what I normally do is, once everything's labeled, I put it into Premiere and run it through a program called Pluralize. Pluralize is a software owned by Red Giant, and they have various software to help you out in these things. And Pluralize specifically is intended to, sync stuff up for you automatically. And overall, it's a very handy tool. Now, obviously the sound quality that you have, the better it is, the more it's able to do, right? Meaning we have the naturally recorded audio from the camera and the boom mic, and then we have the actors laved up. And so the idea is to sync those two things together. And the better your audio is from the camera, the easier it is for the program to sync up with the audio from the lavs. And all that to say, overall, it does a good job, right? It gets me closer to the finish line, but generally on my guerrilla style filmmaking, out and about in the street style movies, it's not perfect, right? Because they're just, sometimes on a wide shot, you're so far away that, you're not necessarily hearing the actors. And so you kind of have to do it yourself. And so, I went through, there's 11 filming days that we had. And so, I organized everything, and then I went through, right now I'm organizing things based on day. So I'm going through each day and syncing those up. And I did that automatically with Pluralize, and now I'm essentially going back and looking at the results, right? And making adjustments, based on the ones that it couldn't sync up. So right now I've done 3 days out of those 11 days. And we'll continue moving forward in that way. Now, it's arduous because, there's that side of me that just really wants to start editing and is so eager to get going, but I can't, right? Or at least I won't allow myself to, because, I want to make sure, like I said, before I do that, I want to be able to work at the speed of thought, as quickly as I can in terms of the edit. And certainly if I have to, start and stop because I have to sync the scenes that I hadn't yet, that slows down the process. So as painful as it might be for me to not be in the edit process yet, I know once I get to that phase, it'll just be exponentially fast because I'll have done the legwork. Not only that, part of the legwork is, in doing this, I'm really reviewing footage because, just by the sheer nature of it, when you're pulling up clips and matching it to things, you see the various coverage that you have. You kind of listen back at least a portion of it to make sure that the sync is lined up, that it's in fact 100% correct. So, the real craft of it is in not only the syncing part, but then also just letting that unconsciously or consciously, however you want to look at it, that information of what you shot kind of seep into you, so that way when one does get to the edit, one can use that knowledge, specifically in this case, me. And so I look at it like that. It's an opportunity to really learn what's available to me, so that way, as I keep mentioning, the edit becomes that much faster. And the real reason why it becomes that much faster is, yes, everything's synced and I don't have to deal with that BS, but really, I'm already seeing patterns and how I want things to go in my head just by doing this. And it's both inspiring because, we shot so much, so many great angles, so many great performances and so many great locations and things like that. On the flip side, what I'm not doing currently is color correcting. And in some ways, it's, looking at raw log footage, it's a little bit painful because it's just so bland, right? But then, once I just, every now and then, just for my own sanity, I apply a quick color correction filter onto the footage just to be like, okay, what will this possibly look like? And once the saturation is there, once there's contrast, the correct brightness and hue and tones and so forth, it really pops. And so that's encouraging that okay, cool, we didn't just, get this really bland footage. And so that's really inspiring, to see and so forth. So that's really been the crux of what I've been doing. And, as much as I wanted to be done by this weekend, just wasn't possible. It's a process, you sort of, at least I do, underestimate how long each of these will take, but it does take some time. But as I said, there's a benefit to it, even at the pace that it's going. So I'm excited about that, that it's going, right? The other major thing that I did over this past technically 2 weeks because I pre-taped a lot of the other stuff that I posted, but over like Thanksgiving break was my I found a film grant that I thought we could really be in contention for if we submitted, and it was offering up good money, right? And so for that, I was like, okay, let's submit. The only problem was the deadline was November 30th. And so in order to do the bulk of the work, it would have to take place over Thanksgiving, pulling footage, writing the proposals, creating a visual look, because I didn't want just like text-based. I wanted, an actual pitch deck and so forth. And that meant that a lot of the people that I would normally tap into, I didn't want to disturb them over their holiday. And so I had to create it myself. And what I did was I looked at past pitch decks that, we'd created and looked at it as a basis for the text, what to include, what not to include. And also the visual flow and style, right? And so I knew that, what I would create wouldn't be as strong as, what we as a team would have been able to create, had that been an option. But, I knew let me just make this as good as it can be. And it's as good, and it'll work, right? It'll be a decent representation. It won't deter it. Yes, it could have been elevated, but it's not going to deter people away from it if they were going to give money to this anyway, right? Select it. And so, I scrambled to kind of really put that together. As I said, it was a lot because there was the writing, there was the pulling of footage, and as I would mentioned a little bit earlier, it's uncolor corrected, so I didn't want to put uncolor corrected footage into it. So I had to do a manual color correction myself for the pulled clips. This was at the time when I was still labeling, so pulling up stuff was a little bit of a process, just simply because I had to find stuff in that way. Excuse me, in the way that normally I'd be like, oh, this scene worked great. Okay, well, that scene's not labeled yet, but okay, so what day did we shoot that scene? Okay, let me go through the footage, blah, 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 right? So a little bit of a process to find certain things. And yeah, then I'm not that strong an illustrator, so instead I made the PDF deck in Photoshop. And, overall, as I said, it works. It's not as strong as it could have been, but under the circumstances, for me, it was a much better option to just do what I needed to do, put this together. And I know the writing is strong, because I did have help with the writing, luckily. And yeah, hopefully we'll see what happens with that grant. The November 30th was the deadline. The first sort of pass of this committee, if you will know the results January 12th, and then they'll make their final selection sometime in February. So, relative quick timeline, and we'll see. Hopefully January 12th we'll hear good news that we are still in the running. And yeah, and this is the other part of it. I have been asked by various people, why don't you go out for film grants before filming the movie? That would have helped with costs in that way. And it's true, it would have helped with costs. But I think for me, it's a lot easier to ask someone of money when the toothpaste is out of the tube already, right? Someone can now look at this and see actual footage, and it's not theoretical. At this point, we've shot the majority of the movie, and we have 2 days left of filming to do, which I'll talk about. But yeah, someone can see that and be like, oh wow, they set out to do something incredible, quite frankly, and they did it, right? And so it's like there's something there, and if this little bit of money helps them get over that finish line, then let's do it, So that's the way I look at it, and that's why I think we have a good shot. I could, of course, be wrong, but that's my approach to it. And so, this was one of the first film grants we will be applying to. Now that we have some breathing room, I've galvanized the rest of the team and said, hey, I had to submit this. I don't want to bother you guys over Thanksgiving, but now, pass on any notes and let's work on this both from, text, pictures, visual style, all that, graphics, and let's get it together. And looks like, we're aiming for a deadline of December 20th to have the much more polished version of the pitch deck done. And, that's exciting. We'll have that off of our plates. So, the next phase of it was trying to figure out, as I said, we have 2 days left of filming to do, relatively short scenes. And so this Saturday, we're going to be filming a restaurant scene, and that's with the bulk of, that's with all the actors, the main actors. And, that one I wanted to schedule before the new year simply because, it involved everybody, and, it's a lot harder to coordinate 5 people than it is 2 people, which is what the rest of what we have to film revolves around. And so I wanted to make sure, okay, let's just get this knocked out, off people's schedules, and then we'll worry about the other day later. And most likely that'll take place in the new year. As of now, fingers crossed, but mid-January we can just get this done and have it be in the can, and be able to edit. Now, the fun part is, especially for the scene that we're looking to film, or at least I'm looking as of now to film in mid-January. It's a very pivotal scene. And so what I think will work to our advantage is I can edit the movie in the lead up to that, and it can help me inform A, how we need to film, B, if I need to do minor rewrites for those scenes and how to approach them. And that's a good opportunity, right, to have at my disposal. So I'm really going to try to take advantage of that. That's kind of the movie, right? And in terms of what's been going on with that, everything else, I've just been thinking, during my walks and just downtime, I've been just writing down movies that I want to watch as part of research for another project, books that I want to read, and just getting organized, right? Coming up on the end of the year, so one of the things I'll be doing in the coming weeks is a reflection back on 2021, lessons learned from 2021, and also looking forward, what are my goals for 2022, both professionally, personally, and everything in between. And so, just been thinking about that during my downtime. And that's been a lot of fun because, as I said, I'll really deep dive this, but in it, creatively, I want to finish out this feature film in 2022. And also, I want to work on my second novel. I recently released my first novel, which is a coming-of-age story set in Slovakia called Elan Elan. The link is in the description if you're curious. And I want to do another book, right? And so part of that, as Stephen King says, those who don't read don't write. And so I've been looking into various books, both nonfiction and fiction, that I can learn from. And I'll do a bigger lesson about this in the future, and I've kind of talked about it in some ways in the past. But the idea, I think when people have ideas, they try to avoid consuming art that is similar to what they're trying to create. And I think this is a big misstep because, number one, I think they try to avoid it because they don't want to copy it. And it's like, well, not just inherently our ideas initially tend to be cliche ridden. It is only through the revision process that we get rid of the cliches and elevate a piece of work to its truest potential. And part of how you eliminate those cliches is knowing what those cliches are. And so, I think there's this fear of like being overly influenced by somebody else and mimicking it. And for me, I don't fear that because, yes, I can be inspired by something, but for the most part, anytime someone said that anything that I pitch someone or whatever, it reminds them of another piece of work. Like I remember I was working on In Search of Sunrise, which is a script that I did, and people were like, oh, it reminds me of Neil Stephenson's Diamond Age and other stuff. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I would read Neil Stephenson's Diamond Age and be like, okay, well, on like the logline version, perhaps it's the same, but in terms of world building, characters, and execution, it's two completely different things. And so I'm never worried about that because my approach to a story, I mean, we could literally, that's the interesting thing about art. You and I could sit down, we can outline a story beat by beat, and then, you go off and write the story, and then I would go off and write the story, and it'd be two completely different stories, right? So that's the interesting part about art and why I don't fear consuming or quote-unquote over-consuming stuff and being influenced by it, because I just know even if I tried, I wouldn't recreate what somebody else did, right? So yeah, I've been doing that and can't wait to share that. The other creative thing that was also really rewarding was I saw my friend Jeff Graham. He's been working on a feature film, and I got a chance to see it. Not only did I get a chance to see it, he came over, so I watched it with him, and my mom was in town, so she actually watched it. So I didn't give her any information. This was her first time watching it. So that way she can, observe it from a pure place and give proper feedback to Jeff, in terms of, did it make sense? Did she have any questions? Things of that nature, right? And overall, for me, I'd seen basically like the first draft, the first edit of this. And I was really blown away by what Jeff had managed to do from, point A to now whatever point it might be. And, it still needs color, sound design, and, its own music. But, he really, through the editing of it, really elevated it. And so I'm excited, minor adjustments here and there that I shared with him. But overall, like, the things he did, I'm really proud of him for, and really revitalized me, because I know generally, like, when you make a first edit of anything, right, whether it's a short film or a feature film, sometimes you look at it and you're like, what the hell is this? Is this even any good? And through the process of revision, and this applies to anything, right? It applies to writing, poetry, music, anything, right? So the first draft, it's like, wow, do you even know what you're doing? But through the revision process, you hone it and you sculpt it and you craft it until it gets better and better. And, what Jeff had at the start of this, I was able to see the diamond in the rough, so to speak, and then to see that, he's been polishing this movie and really creating something special. It's amazing to see, right? It's a really inspiring process. So I'm proud of him, and I think the movie's going to be something really special when it's all done. And I'm excited for him. I said to him, now you're getting close, so minor adjustments here and there, and I told him what, and now you're gonna have so much fun with the sound design and the music and the color, because that's a whole nother element to the movie that's going to just elevate it in ways that you didn't expect, much like the edits enhance the story in ways that you didn't expect. So that's cool. The last aspect of, in terms of like what I've been doing in terms of work, right, is I've been, doing just kind of odd jobs here and there. To me, I enjoy all kinds of things. And my friend Steph Z, she has a tree lighting or like a holiday lighting business, right? So she goes to people's houses. They pay her company to put up, lights and decorations and so forth. And she's been doing this for a number of years. And she has employees and so forth. And for years, we've been trying to like coordinate where I would get to be a part of it. And, the majority of this year, during which the business happens, I was in Colombia filming my movie. But there was an opportunity to do a day, and she called me and I was like, yeah, I'm in. And so, it was fun, it was just something to break up the routine of every day, to do something that I normally don't get a chance to do, right? And meet new people and obviously see Steph and things like that. And yeah, that was fun, and then other people have been, friends of mine have been in touch with me about like, hey, can you help me with this? Or, can you tell me about that? And so just kind of coaching various people and helping them out, having podcasts, that's always fun for me. And, to that effect, come 2022, I'm reshuffling things to allow for a few new clients. And so if you're interested in that, check out my website, philsvitek.com. But if you're on the fence, like, maybe I will, I would suggest, getting in touch with me sooner rather than later, because just time-wise, I don't get to take on that many people. And so if you're thinking about it, slots are filling up fast, so to speak. So, do that. And that is my dog Chloe agreeing with me, right? Saying yes, you should definitely do that. As far as fun things, so my mom's been in town, and a couple of things that I've gotten to do is check out the Grammys Museum. I've never been to the Grammys Museum, which is ironic because I do various work with the Grammys themselves. The Recording Academy specifically is the company that does the Grammys. And I thought, it's always interesting to go to a museum, because there's always, it's like when you watch a documentary, even if it's a bad documentary, you're always going to learn something. And I thought the Grammys did a wonderful job, presenting people I'm familiar with, as well as people that I'm not familiar with. And so, like there was a whole Latin exhibit, and that was really wonderful to see, of various artists that, quite frankly, I'm unfamiliar with, but obviously have a huge impact or have impacted the world. And so, I just love taking influence from all cultures, because I think it makes anyone's art all the more richer. And, of course, there was just so much, right? There was like Motown. There was a whole exhibit on Motown, and, that was great to see. There's like various replicas of costumes from Motown and so forth. So that was really fun. They also had, great moments from the Grammys, that you could watch, and so forth. And, then a whole wall of people who like Lifetime Achievement Awards, and you kind of observe and study that, and you're like just in awe of, the various people that and then the amount of people that you're like, oh, I had no clue. And, you start to learn more about them and all that. So, yeah, that was fun. We also did the Academy Museum. We started off with the Miyazaki exhibit, Miyazaki being the director of Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, My Neighbor Totoro, all just really animated films from Japan, but really wonderful Studio Ghibli films. He formed that production company, and it was a wonderful. They had original sketches. They had the process of how his movies get made. They had some miniatures. They also had some desk replicas of where the various artists sat. They had clips. So it was a really wonderful exhibit. And then of course you get to tour the other floors of the Academy Museum. And as someone who loves film, I thought it was a good exhibit. There was an animation section, there was a costume section, there was a prop section, there was foreign films, there was a Spike Lee exhibit, just all kinds of different things that you can really partake in and learn and so forth. So that was another great experience. And there was also, we went to this Love Actually musical. So it was people performing Love Actually on stage, singing, dancing, and all that stuff. And it was interesting because it was an intercut. They intercut it with clips of the movie and so forth. And I remember Rockwell Table and Stage, they would do the unofficial musical parodies of various films like Home Alone, even TV shows like Stranger Things they did, Jurassic Park, Hocus Pocus. These are ones that I had been to, and that was much smaller and kind of more interactive. This was less interactive, but higher production value because it's a typical stage, and you had set pieces moving in and out, pieces of wall, props and so forth. The costuming was elaborate and so forth. But it reminded me of that, and yeah, it was a good time. Interestingly for me, I had not seen Love Actually, so it took a little bit to get into the story, but it's simple enough that I understood what was happening, and overall a good time. So that's some of the things that I've been up to in the past week and a half or so. Anyway, as always, thank you for taking the time to tune in. You can always support me at patreon.com/PhilSvitek or buy any of my products. I came out with a novel. I have a nonfiction book called Master Mental Fortitude, which puts all the various lessons that I've been teaching over the years into a concise book. And not only that, but it has exercises of how to apply those lessons into your life. So that's Master Mental Fortitude. My first film, Love Market, is out, and all that. Plus I have various merchandise, so the links are in the description if you're curious about that. That's one way to support me. Of course, if you haven't yet, you can always subscribe. That way you get all the various lessons and episodes that I put out right when I put them out. They're free, such as this one, right? And I appreciate you. You can ask any follow-up questions that you may have, whether anything that I talked about or anything you want me to talk about, in the comment section, or hit me up on social media at PhilSvitek. Thank you, and I hope to see you next time.